In the dead of night, only the dim streetlight illuminated the path through the desolate suburbs. I was in search of a place to stay just for the night, to alleviate the fatigue from a long journey. Due to work circumstances, I had to head to a distant town rather abruptly and booked a room on Airbnb for a midway rest. The house I chose looked cozy from the pictures, reasonably priced, and fairly rated. However, curiously, the host had only shared photos of the exterior, leaving the interior a mystery. I arrived late at night. The destination was tucked away in a quiet residential area, with nothing else around. The key was in a lockbox, for which the host had messaged me the code. But from the moment I opened the door, something felt off. The air was heavy, a certain unease floating within. Stepping into the living room intensified that feeling. The furniture was covered in dust, seemingly untouched for years. The eerie part, though, was an old mirror in one corner of the wall. It appeared to emit an odd light. The first bedroom held an even stranger sight. In the corner sat an old doll, its eyes seemingly pleading at me. Yet, the second bedroom was far more terrifying. Upon opening the door, I was greeted by old paintings covering the entire wall. In the darkness, the figures within seemed to move. I tried to dismiss the night's unease and lay down in bed. However, sleep eluded me. As the night progressed, the house began to fill with strange noises. It sounded as if something was crawling within the walls, an irksome noise. And most horrifully, a low moaning sound emanated from the second bedroom. Unable to bear it, I leapt out of bed, hastily gathered my belongings, and fled the house. Driving through the night without looking back, I searched for a safe place and eventually spent the remainder of the night at a motel I found after some time. In the morning, I attempted to contact the Airbnb host, but there was no response. Moreover, the listing itself had vanished suddenly. The truth behind what happened remains unknown. Yet, the fear from that night remains vividly etched in my memory. What lurked within that house? What prompted my hasty retreat? All of it remains shrouded in mystery. An unprecedented cold wave hit the city, and we had planned a winter getaway. Our destination was a small town in Colorado, known for its old streetscape. The Airbnb we found was a wooden cabin nestled quietly in the mountains. The photos showed a roof covered in snow and a cozy living room with a fireplace, making it seem like the perfect place for a winter escape. The host had added a message saying it was the perfect hideaway for nature lovers. We arrived at dusk. Thick snow covered the roads, and the trees sparkled white with frost. The cabin was more secluded than expected, with the nearest house several kilometers away. This was the true solitude we had been excited for. However, the host who was supposed to pass us the keys didn't show up, and the door had a keypad lock instead. After entering the code provided in the message, we found the interior surprisingly warm despite the severe cold outside. The living room had a fireplace stocked with firewood, and the kitchen was well equipped with food. Our first impression was nearly perfect. But as the night deepened, an uneasy atmosphere began to pervade. Shadows flickered outside the windows, and a howling wind could be heard incessantly. We reassured ourselves that the unease might stem from being in an unfamiliar place or the isolation. When I woke up in the middle of the night, I heard noises from outside. At first I thought it was the heavy snow pressing down on the roof, but the sounds were too periodic. Footsteps. Indeed, someone was walking outside. Despite the fear, I approached the window to look out but saw nothing but the footprints in the dark night. The next morning, we received a message from the host. If you hear strange noises at night, please don't worry. It's just the mountain wind. However, what we saw was not the work of the wind. Someone's footprints were deeply engraved around the cabin. That day we explored the nearby town. When we returned after sunset, I felt a gaze behind me. Turning around, I briefly saw a figure standing in the distance, but it vanished upon closer inspection. Again at night, we woke up to the sound of someone prowling around the cabin. This time, I ventured outside, only to find footprints in the freezing cold, circling the cabin and coming close to the doors and windows but disappearing suddenly, as if vanishing into thin air. Unable to sleep all night due to anxiety and fear, I contacted the host early the next morning. However, there was no reply, and a creepy silence enveloped the cabin all day. We didn't dare to go outside and just waited for time to pass. In the evening, we finally received a reply from the host. Once, an old woman lived alone in that cabin. She had a deep love for the mountains but succumbed to loneliness and the cold one winter. However, her soul still hasn't left the place. The unease you felt, the footprints, and the noises at night might all be her checking on your safety. Reading this message, we felt a mix of fear and pity. When night came again, listening to the sounds from outside somehow calmed our hearts, thinking it might be the old woman's loneliness and affection manifesting. However, that night, the most terrifying event awaited. Suddenly, the temperature inside plummeted as if the fireplace had gone out, and a figure began to emerge in the corner of the living room. It was the old woman, dressed in old clothes, with eyes full of deep sadness. She quietly looked at us, then slowly faded away, becoming transparent. After that, the cabin warmed up again, and a strange sense of security spread. We felt the old woman's soul, still tied to this land, had tried to convey something to us. From this experience, we learned how deeply people can connect to a place and that their stories still breathe life into the land. Our stay at the Airbnb turned into an unexpected horror experience, but it also became an unforgettable lesson, reminding us of the deep bonds between people and places. Moving forward, we'll always listen to the history and stories of the places we visit, paying respect to their significance. The cast of the new horror series titled A Grave House had rented a manor hidden deep in an ancient forest through Airbnb for the shooting of one season. The actors included Sophia, the young and ambitious lad Daniel, the experienced horror movie actor, and Ethan, the talented but demanding director. Among the cast was also Julia, a reserved girl who played a servant in the series' plot. In the series, every character met their demise in eerie ways. However, what was supposed to be fiction began turning into a terrifying reality with the start of the shooting. After the shooting ended, the cast decided to stay at the manor to celebrate their success. But that night, Daniel was found dead, having died in the same manner his character did in the series. Initially thought to be a tragic coincidence, the cast realized something horrifying was happening when Sophia was also found dead the next day, killed in the same way her character was in the series. Feeling trapped, they tried to contact the outside world, but all communication had been cut off. One by one, the cast met their end just like in the series, and Ethan, the director, tried to find a way out in terror. But all exits were locked, and he too was killed that night. The only survivor was Julia, the only character who survived in the series. Overwhelmed by fear and panic, Julia managed to escape through a secret door she had found during filming. Once in town, she immediately went to the police, who were skeptical of her story but still conducted an investigation. Upon arriving at the manor, they found it empty, with no signs of violence, making Julia's story seem like a figment of her imagination. Back home, Julia attempted to reclaim her life but was deeply affected by the fear she had experienced. Every night, she dreamed of her colleagues dying in horrifying ways, and every day, she wondered what really happened at the manor. The story ends with an unexpected twist. Julia receives a notification from Airbnb asking her to review her stay at the manor. The previous review said, "Great stay." True to the story, it's as if the curse is real. With a shiver of horror, Julia realizes that the manor is indeed cursed, and her nightmare is far from over.